On the live stream to start. Okay, there it goes. That looks so blurry on that one. And there's a lot of lag on that one too. I don't know what's been going on with with this stream. They're not they're not doing the good on internet rates, and I know I'm getting the top quality internet rates, but they're not. The streaming service that we use isn't picking up good speeds, so everything looks much slower. You wonder what I'm looking at behind the screen. I've got the television behind the monitor so that I can have things overlaid. Uh, since I've started working out of the living room, since I had to relocate a bunch of computers and stuff to the bedroom office area for the new contract, the new job. So been working out of the living room. So there's a lot of that stuff there. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting good speeds on this stream up here. All right. And if I'm sounding raspy, I have been sick for probably the last 2 or 3 weeks. Went to the doctor, and it's like, I'll just take a couple Tylenol, should be fine, drink some water. And so I started drinking lots of water, and next thing you know, I'm right back to where I started from. Uh, Still got a horrible fever that keeps me cold, keeps me hot. If I'm too cold, I put my robe on, or I put the blanket on. As soon as I put that on, I start sweating. As soon as I take it off, I start freezing. It's it's ridiculous. And then of course with this lamp produces a lot of heat, and it's also been really hot outside. I think temperature today was a little cooler than it has been, but it still has a heat index of around 102, 104. Yeah, right now it's 88 outside, but feels like 100. So we got a we have a heat index of plus or minus, or plus, not minus, plus about 10 degrees because of the 90% humidity outside. So, trying to keep cool is relatively tough right now. And at the same time, trying not to sweat everything out of my body when I'm sleeping at night is really tough. I tell you, I had, I don't know, I must have turned the air off during my in my sleep last night. But I I had the air on 70, and I woke up in a puddle of sweat. My entire backside was just sweat. The underside of the cover was just sweat, because I'm telling you, this fever, I don't know what it is. Doctors don't know what it is. Go to the doctor like, oh, it's not strep throat, it's not COVID, it's not the flu, it's not anything else. They can't find anything in your blood. So it must be just some random virus that they can't identify. I'm like, well, that gives me a lot of confidence and faith that you guys actually tried something. But with enough of talking about that, it's time to get on to the show. All right. And I was writing some stuff, but, you know, kind of picked the show up off in the window. I was hoping that my co host would join me, but as you can see, I'm here alone. So you see the title of the show. You know what this is going to be about. But let's get into it. I got a couple of things to address first. So, hello, America, and welcome to the story of America. Tonight, we have a few things to discuss before tonight's show. Firstly, I'd like to apologize to the listeners and viewers of the show that view and or listen to the show through our podcast and other associated forums that our podcast is promoted through. I've dropped the ball on downloading and uploading the files directly to the podcast. Initially, we had switched over to streaming because it was it was causing me to run out of space on my hard drive on my computer, um, because of how large the files that we had on Zoom were. And so there's an easy way to rectify this issue, and that would be to make shorter episodes. However, I do feel that shortening uh, the show to anywhere less than an hour would severely limit the expression and explanations of ideas and concerns of both myself, my co-host, and any potential guests that we have on the show. So I don't want to shorten the show for much longer. I mean, if you guys watch the show and you like the show, you know that this is a uh, a long form show. I don't like beating around the bush with certain things. I don't like uh, soft questions and producing a 15-minute video and being done with it. I don't. You see, the way I figured, I can be more amateurish doing a long video than I can doing a 15-minute video. If I do a 15-minute video, I gotta research and learn a lot more on coding and special effects and how to do all of that stuff that makes a 15-minute video worth watching, because you have to do something that catches people's attention to stuff. But here with a long form video like that, I like to do these long essay like videos and uh and streams. I don't have to worry about doing that. Even, I work a lot of hours. And when I first started this program back in 2020, 2019, my workload was even greater than it is now. And at the time, I was producing videos by myself. I was writing scripts for videos in the mornings before work. I get up in early in the morning. My grandmother would drop me off at Waffle House, and I'd wait there for about an uh, hour or 2 hours, depending on some things sometimes, uh, and for for my boss to come swing by and grab me, and then I go to work. So I'd sit there, and for 2 hours, I'd spend my time at the Waffle House, eat my breakfast, drink my coffee, write a script, research, and write. And I do that every single day. So that's the reason I was able to produce those lots of videos early on. But then writing multiple scripts in a week, recording multiple scripts in a week, and then editing all of those things to remove curse words and to remove too much silence time if there was distractions, if there was noise in my background, if there was a whole bunch of other crap that was constantly in my way and that was constantly pissing me off. um, it caused a lot more work. So I'm the first viewer of every single episode that we have. So when I was editing and recording these videos, I've already listened to it. I wrote it, I recorded it, then I listened to it again. And so when I'm editing and stuff, these videos can take, a couple hours to produce sometimes. Some of our longer videos take 2, 3 hours. The longest video I think we've ever done was our Christian episodes, which I don't mind doing those really, really long. But the longest episode we've ever done, I think, was over 5 hours. And if you've been following me on social media, you know that I join a lot of other platforms. One of the platforms that I appear on most frequently, because they always invite me, is Prime Kai's uh, Twitch channel, all Black Everything panels every Thursday. And so long as they send me an invite, if I like the topic, and if my health is good, and if my job is not in the way, I always say yes. Now, lately, my health has not been good, so I've been declining more episodes, but I did do one last week despite my health being uh, the way it is right now. And I'll probably accept again this week, depending on what the topic is. Um, so you know I have no problem if you've watched any of those. I have no problem doing episodes that last in excess of 4 or 5 hours. I have no problem doing that. The problem comes from behind the scenes, editing everything, downloading everything, cross-fading things, isolating sounds and noises, and inserting things and putting things where they need to be. That becomes the problem. And that problem can take 6 hours by itself to do. It could, because I'm not the best at it, at doing those things. I've been teaching myself as I go along, and I have very little help on that side of things from my other host who've helped me with the show. But most of that, actually all of that, is always all me. And going through all of those different frame by frames, pulling things out, piecing things together, trying to make things look natural without doing things. It also delays the amount of time that I can do things. It also makes it difficult to do live videos because sometimes I can produce a video ahead of time and then stream it as if I'm live, but that causes a problem in of itself because then I have to sit back and listen and watch the video all over again. And then I also am watching the chats on Facebook and Twitter and the other places that we stream to. I'm watching the chats so that I can see if there are questions that need to be answered. And sometimes we do. Most of the time, you guys don't bother participating in social media or any of the polls that I put in any of the shows on the podcast. So I do not have any interest in changing the format at this time. However, I do wish to keep things as close to 1 hour as possible, except for when we have important guests, because I want to give them as much time as necessary to defend their argument and prove why, if they're a politician, why their position is best, and to give their perspective um, to the audience. Also, I do not like when questions that I ask are dodged. And so until I get an answer that I'm satisfied with, I'll keep asking the question over and over again. I don't, that's the benefit of running this type of forum. I don't have to put things on the time schedule. If somebody wants to come on the show, we give them a time frame, a time period, and we ask these questions. You better be prepared to answer them because if it's not what an answer that satisfies, whether it be an answer that we agree with or not, if it's not a definitive answer, I'm not letting you off the hook easily. And so, secondly, I want to discuss my commitment to you, our viewers and listeners, and um, that listen to us through the podcast, and all of the distributors that have access to our podcast that send it all over the place: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, Breaker Audio, Radio Public, um, all of these places that we are affiliated with. I have to make a commitment to you that you will have access. You will be able to have access to these older videos that we have been streaming very soon on the podcast. I'm working very diligently to download all of our copies, especially since YouTube continues to delete so many of them, uh, as if our small little channel was a threat to YouTube. Uh, Lastly, is my commitment to be consistent with new uploads and new episodes. Communication with my team does not always go as planned, and of course, life issues can create delays and can stop things for a while. But the greatest issue has been procrastination on my part to get the job done. I've, I work a lot. This is true. But outside of work, if I'm not cooking or doing my best to clean, which I don't like to do, uh, I've been dedicating my time elsewhere to whether it be my video games, going out with my friends more often, or just resting. Right. And is the procrastination. I've got books in the library that I check out with the intention to read. And because of the procrastination and taking my time off of what it is that I want to do, uh, I just never get those things done. So that's the that's what's really holding things up is procrastination on my part. So I'm going to make a pledge, and I guarantee that you will see a video from at least me at least once a month with a target of at least once a week. Target of once a week is tough because, as I said, some things can happen, uh, but guaranteed once a month to have a video, and with a target of once a week. So I say to expect anywhere between 2, 3 videos in a month, but you're guaranteed to get at least one. Okay. Now that I'm done getting the boring stuff out of the way, now on to today's program. So in the movies, we have seen several spy movies where the spies are facing off against rogue governments. And many times with these spies, in the end of the movie, just before the moment of failure is at hand and the spy is usually about to be killed by the enemy, they're revealed to the public through some usually ridiculously outlandish and convenient method. All of the corruption within the government, within these bad guys in the movie, and then the police show up and arrest the corrupt actors. And then the spy is saved, and we get to enjoy a happy ending. Well, I say that because what we have here in America today is the single greatest spy movie ever made, where the spy loses and none of the corruption is ever revealed. What the Bidens and the Biden administration is doing to this country is the single greatest scandal in the history of all the world. I call it the Great Cover-Up, and I'm going to be doing the series on this because that's exactly what it is. It is the greatest cover-up in history. Anyone with a brain could figure this out. But in interest of fairness, because I know so many people are addicted to mainstream media and they watch and get all of their news from programs that refuse to show them things. And then because they haven't seen it themselves, they refuse to listen to people like me who do our research independently. So let's take a look at some of the evidence, shall we? First, I'm going to share with you guys my screen. You see, the first thing that we have to talk about is Hunter, Joe Biden's crack addicted son. There's no reason for me to share audio because we don't have to worry about that. Take a look here. This is Hunter. Now, this is a picture that was on the Hunter Biden laptop that the media, left-wing agents, talk show hosts on the radio programs, they all told you that this was fake. It was Russian disinformation. Hunter's naked in this image, which she has every right to be naked. I mean, you could take as many naked pictures of yourself as you want to. This, however, is not okay. This is Hunter Biden recording himself driving a Porsche looks to be Porsche 911 Turbo, while on the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, to meet with some prostitutes and drug dealers, going in at 172 miles an hour. On the interstate in the United States of America, the speed limit is 70, with a maximum potential speed typically of 75. Well, Hunter's going 100 miles over that. Definitely breaks the law, but what makes that worse is this picture. Hunter Biden in the same vehicle, different place, different time of day, but Hunter's behind the wheel of a car, driving in what looks to be an active neighborhood, as you can see from other cars on the road, and he's driving, recording himself smoking crack. Well, there's the car. So they have the license plate. They have all the information. They can bust him at any time. What? So if that were you or me, we'd be arrested. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden in 1991, while debating the crime bill that later passed in 1994, Joe Biden said that crack the size of a quarter, you get caught with that, you go to jail 5 years, no debate, no due process, 5 years, period, no court. That was what Joe Biden said. And then, of course, Joe Biden wrote that into law in 1994 in the Biden crime bill, which indiscriminately sent more blacks to jail than anywhere else. But was also important was blacks were charged at a higher rate than whites for using crack and cocaine because whites were using coke powder version uh, vastly more often than the rock version. And Hunter uses both. But Hunter has faced zero jail time. Uh, this image here is Hunter Biden in Las Vegas, where he drove at 172 miles per hour. Hunter Biden is here with a prostitute having sexual relations and recording himself having sexual relations. Uh, according to the law, it is against the law to record yourself having sexual encounters. It's also against the law to have sex with a prostitute. And there you have it, Hunter Biden recorded himself. You can watch the 3-minute video if you want to. I have no interest. But there you go. Here you could take a look at some more of the stuff that we have with Hunter Biden. This is just Hunter Biden. Now, we also have the case for Hunter Biden here. You can see a police report, but nothing happened. No one was arrested. Nothing happened. We also see Hunter Biden with his daughter that he had with a hooker, a prostitute, that he denies, and the Bidens deny. You know, Biden said they have 6 grandchildren when they have 7, and they refuse to acknowledge the 7th grandchild, who's 4 years old now, and she gets to see on TV every day her father and her grandfather deny her and say that she doesn't exist. They even set up 7 Christmas stockings in the White House. However, the 7th stocking wasn't for the missing grandchild. The 7th stocking was for the dog. But they're supposed to be a party of civility. Okay. Here's another tidbit of information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Here's another tidbit of information. Did you know that Hunter Biden was also a pedophile proven by the Hunter Biden laptop? Well, it's true. Unfortunately, you're going to have to search ridiculously hard to find the proof of it. We covered it on the show before, but the article that had the picture with the girl's ID showing her at the time of having sex with Hunter Biden was under the age of 18. Well, that article has been delisted and removed from the internet. We have that out there, but you know what? I think that video may have been striked by YouTube. But we have that information out there. Hunter Biden is a pedophile, but he's still on the loose. Hunter Biden is a known crackhead. He's a known abuser. He is also known to have committed extortion and bribery. We know this because we saw it in the WhatsApp text messages that show Hunter Biden trying to extort a Chinese oligarch from the Chinese Communist Party to shake him down for them to give him $5 million. And he used the leverage of Joe Biden, then Vice President Biden, saying that Vice President Biden is sitting right next to me. And if you don't give me the $5 million, you don't want to incur the wrath of this man. But Joe has no dealings with his son Hunter's business affairs. We have those messages now. What makes this even more troubling is this the simple fact that we have whistleblowers that are ready to testify, willing and able to testify against the Bidens, providing evidence and proof that all of these allegations are true. But what do you think is stopping them from being able to do that? I'll give you a guess. The Bidens. The Biden DOJ has done something that we've never seen before. You you don't you don't retaliate against whistleblowers. It's against the law. Congress passed a law in there to protect whistleblowers from the potential of the FBI, Department of Justice, the president, or whoever it was that the whistleblowers are whistling against. They passed a law, the Whistleblower Protection Act, so that these guys couldn't face retaliation for testifying against bigwigs. Well, the whistleblowers that are willing to testify against Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the whole crime family cabal, they've been suspended indefinitely from their positions at the Department of Justice, at the FBI, and CIA, and the IRS. They've been suspended indefinitely without pay, in some cases for over 6 months. Suspended indefinitely without pay for 6 months. Some of them have been indicted on charges that are all hogwash, simply so that they can find a way to shut these people up and keep them out of the public space, because if they go in a public area, they are considered to be a wanted person with a warrant for their arrest. So they can't come forward to Capitol Hill, because the moment they step foot on Capitol Hill, the FBI will seize them and arrest them, and they will never be able to speak publicly and share the information. Other whistleblowers have had their names doxed, their addresses released. These things have never happened before. So we have this level of corruption. And then it gets even better. It gets even better because, as you all know, we have discovered cocaine in the White House. And the story of the magically traveling cocaine continues to change every day. We have audio evidence that the cocaine was initially discovered in the library of the White House, which is only accessible to members of the Biden family. But they didn't like having that information out there, so the left-wing media never released that information. The right-wing media only talked about it briefly, and no questions were asked about it at any press conference, why it was in the library. And then the story came out a little while later. Oh no, it was in a heavily trafficked area in the West Wing. So it was a tourist who brought the cocaine into the White House, which, you know, cocaine is a white substance. Anthrax is a white substance. Fentanyl can be a white substance. All things can, which are lethal to the president of the United States. You mean to tell me that the Secret Service, where you have to give social security numbers, addresses, all this information, receive thorough pat downs before you can even step foot into the White House, or they have to log your name and information and have facial recognition on all of these other services? You mean to tell me that the Secret Service let a tourist bring cocaine into the White House? Nah, I don't think so. Well, then they changed the story. They said, well, it wasn't in a heavily trafficked area by where tourists were in the West Wing. It was in an area in the West Wing that was heavily trafficked by staff members because it was sitting in a cubby or a locker right outside the Situation Room where the president discusses the most top secret information in our country that could affect our allies across the world, that can include war meetings, war councils, can include nuclear proliferation efforts, and other things that are all extremely dangerous if that information falls to the wrong hands. Well, then now they're saying it was found in a cubby outside of the situation. So it wasn't that situation. So 4 different times it moved. And they're saying that in the span of a weekend, 500 people came in through the entrance that was closest to the Situation Room, that you need to have clearance from the President of the United States to enter. 500 people came through there. They had no cameras. They got DNA and fingerprint specialists. There was no DNA, no fingerprints, nothing on this plastic bag containing the cocaine. So you mean to tell me that in the summer, when the temperatures, at least right here in my state, on July 2nd, the temperatures had exceeded 112 degrees. You mean to tell me that somebody was in the White House in broad daylight carrying a baggie of cocaine, wearing gloves in 90 plus temperatures? Doesn't make any sense to me. I think you're all smart people. I think you all can come to the same conclusions. But if it doesn't get any better than that, the FBI closes the investigation after 11 days, not even 2 full weeks. After 11 days of investigating, the not the FBI, the Secret Service says, well, you know what? We can't find any fingerprints. We can't find any evidence. We can't find anything tangible to locate the person. So we're just going to throw away the case. Forget the fact that they have all of the 500 potential suspects. They have all of their information. They can summon these people by subpoena and by court order, or by simply sending the DOJ to these people's homes, rounding them up, bringing them before the Secret Service. Okay? And zero drug tests were given of any Biden staffer, of any potential suspects or guests, as they say, any tourist. No drug tests have been performed at all. But I want you to keep that in mind. 2 weeks, they wrapped up their investigation into cocaine that could have been laced with fentanyl, that could have been anthrax, that could have been an explosive, that could have killed the president of the United States, found in the White House next to the Situation Room after it moved from 4 different other places, including the library, which is right underneath the mansion of the White House where the president sleeps. And they only took 2 weeks to do this investigation, and they ended the investigation without arresting anybody. 2 weeks. We're in 2023 right now. 3 years have gone by since January. No, 2 years have gone by since January 6th. They're able to identify every single person that was at January 6th. People who were peaceful, people who were unpeaceful, and some people who weren't even there doing anything. They're able to identify every single person, and some people are facing 10 years in prison for just standing there. They're able they're able to identify that 2 years they've been investigating this and arresting people. Let's talk about Trump. They spent 5 years investigating Trump on Russia collusion. They spent another 6 years investigating Trump again. Now they're investigating Trump again, trying to say that he's obstructing justice. They're investigating Trump again, trying to say that he's committing espionage act. So all in all, Trump has been investigated for almost a decade now. They haven't found anything. They just announced that he will potentially be indicted a third time for charges related to January 6th, which he wasn't even there. So how do you indict somebody for something they weren't there? But you're gonna say, well, he caused it. Well, then where's Bernie Sanders' indictment for when his radical supporter jumped over the fence at the congressional baseball and shot and almost killed Congressman Steve Scalise? Where's that indictment? Bernie had nothing to do with it, but it was his supporter that was radicalized by Bernie's rhetoric. If that's the way they want to do it, okay. So they come out with this indictment because they're trying to bury this story. They're trying to crush any interest in this story. They don't want it to show up anymore. They want people to ask questions about it, about this indictment. What we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is the single greatest cover up in American history. Without a doubt, the single greatest cover up in American history, probably in the history of the world. It's the biggest scandal they've ever seen. And it is ridiculous. And it is about time that we do something about it. I'm sick and tired of seeing what's going on. Now, the problem is that every one of these actors are in the Department of Justice. The corruption is there. The corruption is investigating themselves. Biden had documents from 1940, not from 1940, from 1974. Biden was a senator. He first got to office, I believe it was in 71. Senators do not have the ability to take classified documents outside of their SCIFs. Senators do not have the ability to declassify documents. Senators cannot remove documents from Congress, from the halls of Congress. Senators cannot take documents home. Senators cannot have documents that have not been declassified by the president. Biden has had documents for 40 plus years. No indictment, no espionage charge, nothing. Biden had documents as a vice president. Vice presidents do not have the ability to declassify documents unless they themselves had first classified them. Barack Obama passed an executive order in 2009 that would have given the vice president the power to declassify documents, which would be the only escape for Joe Biden to say that he has documents as a former vice president. Same thing for Mike Pence. Barack Obama has classified documents. Bill Clinton has classified documents. As a matter of fact, the case ruled in the Presidential Records Act is based off of a lawsuit that was an attempt to collect documents from Bill Clinton, where the Supreme Court just ruled that Bill Clinton, as the president of the United States, is the only person who gets to decide what documents are personal, what documents are presidential records, and NARA can't do a damn thing about it because they are not a branch of government. They have no power over the executive branch. They are part of the executive branch, but they have no power over the executive because there's only one executive branch member, and it's the current president at the time. And anybody else in the executive branch, all these executive offices and stuff, these people are just aides to the president. None of these other people, not even the vice president, have any power to question anything that the president does. Now, if the president commits treason, which is one of the few laws, actually the only law, from my reading of the Constitution, that is defined in the Constitution itself. A crime, I mean, not law. The only crime that is defined in the Constitution itself is treason. The president does that, then of course Congress can impeach and vote to convict and stuff like that. Well, Biden has committed treason. He's committed bribery and other high crimes and misdemeanors, all of which qualify for being impeached, qualify for him going to jail for a long time. Hunter Biden should be in jail right now. But I'm going to close this down right now because we have a lot to discuss. I'm going to continue to write some more on this topic. I want to go do more research, bring you more stories, bring you more things about this, and point out more of the hypocrisy, because it's time for the American people to realize one thing. Government, or should I say this, the United States of America does not exist because the government allows us to. The government exists because we, the people who are the United States, allow them to exist. And it's time for the people, and particularly the states, to start exercising their power and authority. The Constitution and the Federalist Papers, they wrote that the powers of the federal government are limited, but the power of the states are innumerable. The states and the federal government have allowed that to be reversed, where the states are limited and the federal government seems to be infinite in its capacity to encroach upon its citizens. It's time to bring it into that. And so with that, this has been the story of America. I want to keep things nice and simple on today's episode. We're going to start doing these much more frequently. I'm going to get those episodes downloaded and get them uploaded. This, uh, I'm going to make a goal to have all that done by September, and you guys will be able to have all of that information and be able to access all of those videos on the podcast. Because look, if you're like me, and you don't feel like buying a new phone. My phone, I broke it. I can't I can't turn it off. Otherwise, it will turn itself off, and I have to turn it back on. I dropped it in a swimming pool, and it's supposed to be waterproof, and it's been doing that ever since. And that's been for like 2 or 3 years. Um, but if you're like me and you don't want to have to spend money on YouTube Premium all of the time so that you have the ability to close your phone down and have something still playing on it. Or you can access Spotify, you can access these other tools that allow you to do the same thing for free, and you can close your phone down and not have to kill so much battery time by having it open all the time. So I'm going to make a commitment to get those things done for you, our viewers and listeners. And as always, God save America. God bless all of you, our listeners and our viewers. And hopefully, the next time I see you guys, I will be feeling much better. And hopefully, my co host will be here to join me. But until then, we will see you next time. This has been The Story of America. Me, your host, DeAndre Pace.